Exposing the truth within forgotten digital files. You are watching Bodycam Story Vault. Evidence unlocked.
I'm sorry, she called you because I'm depositing my own money?
Sir, we received a report about suspicious activity.
Can a black man be successful no more?
Sir, the bank manager said you couldn't verify where the funds came from.
She didn't ask me where it came from. She saw a black man with cash and panicked.
I understand.
Raymond Vincent Ashford III was depositing money into his own bank when police arrived. His bank, the institution his grandfather had founded, the company where he had served as CEO for 12 years, $18.7 billion in assets, 347 branches, his name on the corporate letterhead, his portrait in the lobby. Patricia Holloway, branch manager, 8 years with the company, saw none of it. She saw a black man with $50,000 in cash and called 911. There's a black man at the counter with a large amount of cash. It looks suspicious. She never spoke to him, never checked his ID, never verified his account in the system, never glanced at the portrait hanging 20 feet behind her. Sir, we received a report about suspicious activity. Ashford turned from the teller window. I'm sorry, you called the police because I'm depositing my own money? The body cam captured the moment he reached into his jacket. The officer's tensing. The business card that emerged. My name is Raymond Vincent Ashford III. I am the Chief Executive Officer of First Continental Financial Group. This is my bank. I own 347 branches, including this one. He pointed to the wall behind them. My portrait is hanging in the lobby. The officers looked. The portrait looked back. Same face. Same man. Same CEO they had just approached as a suspect. Holloway was terminated before she could return to her office. The investigation that followed changed the company forever. Subscribe to the channel before we continue. Wednesday afternoon. First Continental Bank, Buckhead Branch. One of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhoods. Raymond Vincent Ashford III walked through the glass doors at 2:15 p.m. Charcoal suit, tailored but not ostentatious. No tie, no cufflinks. Casual by his standards. He was conducting what his executive assistant called a mystery shopper day. Unannounced visits to branches. No entourage. No advance notice. Walk in like any customer and evaluate the experience. 12 years as CEO. Hundreds of these visits. The practice that kept him connected to how his bank actually served customers. This morning he had withdrawn $50,000 in cash from a personal account at a competitor, kept specifically for these tests. Large cash transactions revealed how staff handled pressure and protocol. He approached the teller window. Jessica Chun, according to her nameplate, 24 years old, 2 years with the bank. Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you today? I'd like to make a deposit. Cash. He began counting out the bundled hundreds. $50,000 spread across the marble counter. Chun was professional. Asked for ID. Prepared the deposit slip. Made conversation. Everything by the book. Ashford was pleased. This was exactly what he wanted to see. Then he noticed movement in his peripheral vision. A woman had emerged from the back office. Branch manager, based on her position and bearing. She stood near her door, staring at him. Not approaching. Not offering assistance. Just watching. Patricia Holloway. 8 years with First Continental. Never met the CEO in person. She retreated to her office without a word. Ashford noted it mentally. Continued his transaction. What he didn't see. Holloway lifting her phone. Her voice hushed, urgent. 911. What's your emergency? There's a black man at the counter with a large amount of cash. It looks suspicious. I think it might be drug money or something. Can you send someone? Can you describe what's suspicious about it? He just has a lot of cash. It doesn't look right. Please send someone. 8 minutes later, 2 Atlanta PD officers walked through the doors. Situations like this often look ordinary at first. Have you ever seen customer service handled differently when large cash transactions are involved? Share your thoughts in the comments. Officer Bradley Warren approached the teller window. His body cam was active, recording. Ashford had nearly completed his transaction. The cash was counted. The deposit slip was ready. Chun was entering the information into her terminal. Sir, we need to speak with you. Ashford turned, hands still resting on the counter beside the cash. I'm sorry, you called the police because I'm depositing my own money? Warren maintained professional distance. Sir, we received a report about suspicious activity. Ashford laughed slightly. The particular laugh of someone experiencing something absurd. Can't a black man be successful no more? Warren glanced at his partner. Back to Ashford. Sir, The bank manager said you couldn't verify where the funds came from. Ashford looked over his shoulder. Holloway was hovering near her office door, face pale, watching the confrontation she had initiated. She didn't ask me where it came from. She saw a black man with cash and panicked. Warren shifted slightly, the body language of someone trying to de-escalate. I understand your frustration, but we still need to verify. Verify what exactly? I'm making a deposit at a bank. With my identification. Into my account. What crime has been alleged? Warren had no good answer. Because no crime had been alleged. Just suspicious black man with cash. Customers had stopped their transactions. Several phones were raised. Recording. Chin stood frozen behind her window. Eyes wide. Hands shaking. Sir, if you could just step over here so we can. I'm not stepping anywhere. I'm completing a legal transaction at a bank. Ashford reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Both officers tensed. Hands moving toward their weapons. Ashford paused. Made eye contact with Warren. I'm reaching for my wallet. There's a business card inside that will explain who I am. He moved with deliberate slowness. Extracted the wallet. Removed a card. Handed it to Officer Warren. The card read, Raymond Vincent Ashford III, Chief Executive Officer, First Continental Financial Group. Warren looked at the card. Looked at Ashford. Looked at the portrait hanging on the wall behind him. Same face. Same man. Same tailored bearing. This is my bank. I own 347 branches. Including this one. He pointed to the portrait. That's me. I'm the CEO. I was conducting an unannounced evaluation of customer service. Warren's expression cycled through confusion, recognition, and horror. And your suspicious activity is me depositing money into my own institution. If professionalism and protocol matter in moments like these, consider leaving a like. It helps more people understand how proper procedures are supposed to work. The lobby had gone completely silent. Every customer, every employee, every person in that branch watching the moment unfold. Officer Warren looked at the portrait again, looked at the business card, looked at the man standing calmly at the teller window. Mr. Ashford, you responded to a call. I understand that. You were professional. You attempted to verify. That's proper policing. He turned to the teller. Ms. Chun, you've done everything correctly. You followed protocol. You handled this transaction exactly as you should have. You have nothing to apologize for. Chin's eyes were wet. Her voice barely audible. Mr. Ashford, sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't call the police. You did your job. He pulled up his account on her screen. The display showed his Tier 1 executive account status. His full name. His position. The information that had been available the entire time, if anyone had bothered to check. Ashford turned to face Patricia Holloway. She was rooted to the spot near her office door. Face ashen. Hands trembling. Ms. Holloway, that is your name, correct? I've seen your personnel file. Yes, sir. Ms. Holloway, I'd like you to explain to these officers, and to the customers in this branch, and to the employees who work for me, why you called the police on the CEO of this bank. Holloway's mouth opened. No words emerged. You didn't speak to me. You didn't check my identification. You didn't verify my account. You didn't follow a single protocol that I personally helped design for handling large cash transactions. I didn't know. I thought. You thought what? That a black man with money must be a criminal? Is that what you thought? He stepped toward her. Not aggressive. Just present. In MY Bank. A bank my grandfather started in 1952 because white-owned banks wouldn't give loans to black families. Holloway had no answer. Because there was no answer that would help her. The lobby remained silent. Phone still recording. The moment documented from every angle. My grandfather built this institution so black families could be treated with dignity. 73 years later, his grandson has police called on him for making a deposit. He looked at Holloway. That is why we have protocols. That is why we have training. And that is why Ms. Holloway no longer works for First Continental Financial Group. Subscribe if you're interested in real stories where outcomes hinge on evidence, procedure, and how situations are handled under pressure. Holloway's face crumpled. Mr. Ashford, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You called the police on a customer, a black customer, based on nothing but the color of his skin and the amount of money in his hands. In a black-owned bank, there is no conversation to be had. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number. This is Raymond Ashford. I'm at the Buckhead branch. I need security here immediately. And I need HR to begin separation procedures for the branch manager. Patricia Holloway. Employee ID should be in the system. He ended the call. Ms. Holloway, please collect your personal belongings from your office. Your access to bank systems has been terminated as of this moment. Our security team will escort you out. HR will contact you regarding your separation from the company. I've worked here for 8 years. And in 8 years, you never learned the fundamental principle this bank was built on. Dignity for all customers, regardless of what they look like. He turned back to the officers. Gentlemen, I won't be filing a complaint against you. You responded to a call. You were professional. You attempted to de-escalate. That's proper procedure. Warren nodded, still processing what he had walked into. I apologize for the inconvenience, Mr. Ashford. The inconvenience isn't yours. It belongs to the person who made the call. He turned to Jessica Chun. Ms. Chun, I'll be noting your professionalism in your file. You handled a difficult situation exactly as you should have. Expect to hear from HR about a commendation. Chun was crying now. Relief and shock and the overwhelming nature of what had just happened. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. You earned it by doing your job correctly. That's all any of us can do. Security arrived within 10 minutes. 2 officers from First Continental's internal team. Holloway was escorted to her office, collected her belongings under supervision, walked out through the same lobby where she had called police on her own CEO. Customers parted as she passed. No one spoke. The silence was its own verdict. The Buckhead branch of First Continental Financial Group had a new story now, a story that would be told for years. The day the CEO walked in unannounced. The day the branch manager called police. The day everything changed. At this point, opinions usually split. Do you think this situation could have been avoided with a simple verification step? Let us know in the comments. The investigation began within hours. First Continental's internal security team pulled all footage from the Buckhead branch. The 911 call was obtained through Atlanta PD records. Holloway's personnel file was reviewed by HR and legal. The pattern emerged immediately. 3 prior incidents involving black customers and large cash transactions. All during Holloway's tenure as branch manager. All handled quietly with retraining and coaching. 2021, black business owner depositing $23,000 in cash. Holloway called the regional security office claiming suspicious activity. Investigation found no wrongdoing. Holloway received verbal counseling. 2022, black real estate investor depositing $41,000. Holloway delayed the transaction for 2 hours while requesting additional verification. Customer filed complaint. Holloway received written warning. 2023, black doctor depositing $18,000. Holloway personally called the customer's employer to verify income. Customer filed complaint. Holloway received retraining on privacy protocols. 3 incidents. 3 black customers. 3 times the pattern was documented but not addressed with termination. Ashford reviewed the file personally. Who approved these responses? Regional HR, sir. Standard progressive discipline. Standard discipline for calling police on customers? For violating their privacy? For treating black customers as criminals. He ordered a company-wide audit. Every branch manager. Every customer service complaint involving race or large cash transactions from minority customers. The results arrived within 2 weeks. 12 additional employees across the company with similar patterns. Complaints documented. Retraining completed. Behavior unchanged. All 12 were terminated. First Continental's board of directors was briefed. The executive team was informed. The pattern that had been allowed to continue was now being addressed at every level. Mandatory bias training. Company-wide. Starting with the executive team. New mystery shopper programs. Diverse testers conducting evaluations at every branch. Random. Unannounced. Documented. A new reporting system for discriminatory behavior. Anonymous hotline. Independent review. Consequences guaranteed. The 911 call was released to the public, with First Continental's permission. There's a black man at the counter with a large amount of cash. It looks suspicious. I think it might be drug money or something. The words that had been spoken about the CEO of an $18.7 billion institution. The video went viral within hours. Bank CEO has cops called on him at his own bank. 23 million views in the first week. If accountability in leadership and workplace standards matters to you, leave a like and share your perspective below. Ashford held a press conference at the Buckhead branch 1 week after the incident. He stood beneath his own portrait, the same portrait that had hung there while Holloway called 911. My grandfather, Raymond Ashford Sr., started this bank in Detroit in 1952 because black families couldn't get loans, couldn't open accounts, couldn't be treated with dignity at white-owned banks. He paused. 73 years later, the CEO of his bank had the police called on him for making a deposit. That tells you how far we still have to go. He announced a $25 million initiative, $10 million for bias training across the financial services industry, partnerships with other institutions, shared curriculum, measurable outcomes. He had targeted Bishop before any pretextual justification existed. The stolen vehicle report was invented after the decision to stop had already been made. Medical examination at Vanderbilt documented Bishop's injuries. First-degree burns to both forearms, consistent with prolonged contact with superheated asphalt. Facial abrasions requiring treatment. Photographs documented the damage. The burns would heal. The scars would remain. FBI Civil Rights Division assumed investigative lead. A federal officer had been assaulted. The case warranted federal attention. Deputy Mitchell cooperated fully. His testimony established the sequence. His Bodycam provided the evidence. Did Deputy Brennan verify the stolen vehicle report before the stop? No. Did he run the plates before approaching the vehicle? No. Did he examine Marshall Bishop's credentials before using force? No. They were on the passenger seat the whole time. He never looked at them. When did you examine the credentials? After Deputy Brennan had Marshall Bishop on the ground for almost a minute. I could see them through the window. I picked them up. They were real. I told Kyle to stop. What was his response? He said they could be fake. But they weren't. I've seen federal credentials before. These were real. The federal grand jury convened 9 weeks after the incident. Indictments: assault on a federal officer, civil rights violations, deprivation of rights under color of law, false imprisonment, filing false reports, obstruction of justice. Deputy Kyle Brennan would face trial for pinning a U.S. Marshal to scorching pavement. The federal courtroom in Nashville drew national attention. A decorated U.S. Marshal pinned face down on hot pavement. The Bodycam footage that had already been viewed millions of times. Deputy U.S. Marshal Terrence Bishop testified on the 4th day. He wore his dress uniform, 23 years of service ribbons and commendations displayed. I informed Deputy Brennan that I was a federal law enforcement officer. I told him I was armed. I told him my credentials were on the passenger seat. I asked how he wanted me to proceed. What was his response? He ignored the protocol, demanded license and registration, then claimed my government vehicle was stolen. Was it stolen? No. The investigation confirmed no such report existed. He fabricated the entire pretext. What happened when you questioned the validity of the stop? He ordered me out at gunpoint, slammed me onto the hood of my truck, then forced me face down onto the pavement. The asphalt had been in the sun all morning. It was hot enough to cause burns. Did you resist? I did not. I kept my hands visible. I repeatedly identified myself as a federal officer. I asked him to check my credentials. He refused. The Bodycam footage played. The jury watched Brennan ignore Bishop's identification, watched him fabricate a stolen vehicle claim, watched him pin a federal officer to scorching pavement while the credentials sat untouched 3 feet away. I'm a federal officer. Check my credentials. Stop resisting. Medical testimony documented the injuries. First-degree burns to both forearms. Facial abrasions. Photographs showed the damage: red, blistered skin from contact with superheated asphalt. The text messages were displayed. Following a nice truck with fed plates. Black driver. Let's see what he's really about. Not this time. Pulling him over. The defense argued good faith response to a potential stolen vehicle. Following procedure. The prosecutors' closing addressed each claim. Good faith doesn't explain fabricating a stolen vehicle report. Procedure doesn't include ignoring federal credentials. And nothing justifies pinning a federal officer to pavement hot enough to cause burns while his badge sits 3 feet away. She displayed the pattern. 14 prior complaints. 75% minority stops. 4 years of targeting black drivers on I-40. Deputy Brennan didn't see a federal officer. He saw a black man in a nice truck who didn't fit his expectations, and he decided to teach him a lesson about his place. The jury deliberated 3 hours. Guilty. All counts. Sentencing followed 8 weeks later. Deputy Brennan, you assaulted a federal officer with 23 years of distinguished service. You fabricated evidence to justify your actions. You caused physical injury that required medical treatment. And you showed no regard for the constitutional rights you swore to protect. The judge reviewed the guidelines. The enhancement for assaulting a federal officer. The enhancement for causing physical injury. 12 years federal prison. Enhanced sentence as provided by statute. Brennan was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. The deputy who had pinned a marshal to the ground would now understand what federal custody meant. The civil settlement was announced 4 months after sentencing. Madison County agreed to pay $5.8 million rather than face extended litigation that would expose decades of systemic failure. The amount reflected not just one assault, but a pattern that supervisors had enabled. Deputy U.S. Marshal Terrence Bishop announced the distribution at a press conference in Memphis, his hometown, where his father had driven a sanitation truck for 35 years, where his great-uncle had marched with the workers Dr. King came to support in 1968. My family has served this community for generations. My father picked up your garbage. My great-uncle fought for dignity. I spent 23 years protecting federal witnesses and apprehending dangerous fugitives. He paused. And on August 4th, I was pinned face down on hot pavement because a deputy couldn't believe a black man might actually be federal law enforcement. He announced the allocation. $2 million to establish the Bishop Foundation, supporting families of fallen law enforcement officers, the people who sacrificed everything. $1.5 million to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, honoring those who served. $1 million to scholarships at Tennessee State University for criminal justice students, the next generation of officers. $1.3 million to the Memphis Sanitation Workers Memorial, in honor of his great-uncle and the 1968 strike that had brought Dr. King to Memphis. I don't need this money. What I need is change. What I need is a world where federal officers and all citizens can drive down a highway without being assaulted because of their skin color. Madison County Sheriff was forced to resign. The investigation had revealed systematic dismissal of racial profiling complaints. 14 complaints against Brennan, all marked unfounded. The culture had protected him until he targeted someone who couldn't be ignored. The department was placed under DOJ consent decree. 5 years of federal oversight. Mandatory bias training. Required verification protocols before any use of force. Deputy Mitchell, whose Bodycam had captured everything and who had eventually intervened, received a suspension and mandatory retraining. His willingness to check the credentials and testify against Brennan was noted in his file. Tennessee's legislature acted within the year. The Bishop Act, requiring verification of federal credentials before any use of force against individuals claiming federal law enforcement status. The law ensured that what happened on I-40 could never happen the same way again. In 1952, my grandfather opened a bank because black families couldn't get basic financial services. 70 years later, I'm still fighting versions of the same battle. The forms change. The assumptions don't. Do you think things are getting better? I think every generation has to do the work. My grandfather did his. My father did his. I'm doing mine. My children will do theirs. Progress isn't automatic. It's earned. The case file remains in First Continental's corporate archives. Incident date, March 12, 2025. Location, Buckhead Branch, Atlanta, Georgia. Branch manager called police on CEO conducting unannounced customer service evaluation. Outcome, immediate termination. Company-wide audit. 13 additional terminations. $25 million reform initiative. 34% increase in new accounts. Institutional change. Principle established. Protocols exist for a reason. Assumptions aren't evidence. And some deposits reveal more about an institution than any quarterly report. Raymond Vincent Ashford III proved that principle the only way available. By walking into his own bank. By conducting a routine transaction. By experiencing what his customers experienced. By converting an incident into reform. The portrait still hangs in the Buckhead Branch. The same portrait that was there when Holloway called 911. Now it hangs above a plaque that tells the full story. 3 generations of building something. 1 moment that tested it. And a CEO who turned humiliation into transformation, because that's what his grandfather would have done. Subscribe for more stories examining leadership, accountability, and the real impact of decisions made in moments like this.
The archives never tell a lie. Thank you for viewing. Subscribe to access the vault.